NYSE TV Live. I'm Trinity Chavez, and today is Wednesday, January 24th. And while we're coming to you from the epicenter of global financial markets, today we are focusing on personal finance this morning. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to be talking about an array of different topics, ranging from getting your budget back on track after a busy holiday shopping season, I know I did, to planning a big purchase like a car or a home, as well as saving for retirement. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. On the top of concerns today, many minds of Americans over the past 2 years has been inflation. As the coronavirus pandemic entered our review mirror year over year, inflation began to rise quickly. In June 2022, consumer prices rose 9.1% year over year, the largest 12-month increase in nearly 4 decades. Well, that number has gone down considerably. Currently, it's sitting at about 3.4%. and remains well above the Federal Reserve's target range of 2%. And as inflation began to soar, the Fed jumped into action trying to stabilize the economy. From March 2022 through July 2023, the Fed signed off on a whopping 11 rate hikes, raising interest rates from near zero to target range of 5.25% to 5.5%. Now, the Fed's rate hike campaign has brought benchmark borrowing costs to their highest level seen since 2001. And it all comes as the Fed tries to successfully execute a, quote, soft landing and avoid recession. However, the rate hike campaign appears to be over. The central bank hasn't raised rates in any of its past 3 policy decisions, which is good news, with the speculation that we could see 3 to 4 rate hike cuts this year. Investors and consumers alike have been particularly optimistic. Now, this was easy to spot in the market, and the S&P jumped by 24% during 2023. Meanwhile, shoppers were busy spending this holiday season. I know I was one of them. Now, according to a recent report by Adobe, online spending between November 1st and December 31st spiked nearly 5% to a record high of more than $222 billion on retailer websites and applications. This is more than $10 billion increase actually from the previous year. However, more spending also means more debt. According to the Fed's latest consumer credit report, consumer borrowing rose by nearly $24 billion in November, more than doubling economists' forecasts of $9 billion. And on the top of that, overall outstanding debt carried by U.S. consumers hit the $5 trillion mark, establishing an all-time high. So let's kick off the roller coaster ride for just a moment and come up with a plan to get your personal finances back on track in 2024. Jamila Safont, founder and host of the Journey to Launch platform, joins me now to talk more about this. Jamila, good morning. It's great to have you back at the New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you heard the intro right there, and we want to talk about consumer spending, obviously. You know, where are you seeing consumers spend the most?
Well, consumers are spending the most in food costs, whether that is the grocery store, rise in items and cost, or going out to eat. And I think that's something we can probably relate to personally, and most of us in our lives, is that's where you're seeing it.
No, actually, I was talking to a colleague yesterday, and he was telling me that, I said, how do you get your personal finances in order? And he was telling me that he budgets about $150 every 2 weeks, and you have to be more selective when choosing to go out to fine dining, regular dining, or even if you're just, you know, getting a coffee at Starbucks, right?
Right, so we're seeing the squeeze from home, whether we're cooking at home or going out to eat. So we have to be very specific and proactive when planning what we're eating for food.
And speaking about eating food, let's talk about the guac method.
Yes.
This is something, I love guacamole, but anyway, the guac method that you talk about in your book. Tell me about this, what it is.
Right, so in my book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom, I talk about reaching financial freedom, but in order to do that and to be happy, we have to spend according to what feels good. And so I call it the 5 levels, the guac levels, in accordance to how you like to spend. So guac level 1 is the most basic. You will never buy guacamole outside at a restaurant. You make it at home, and it ranges up to guac level 5, where you have a guac factory. You have a chef that cooks guacamole or makes it for you fresh table side. And so in that range, if you can determine what you really like to spend on and what your guac level is, you can be more realistic with your financial goals.
Now let's talk about the Fed hikes. Obviously, we are seeing inflation high. You know, the rate right now is still higher than the Fed wants to see it. And as people say, you know, don't fight the Fed, how do you think that people can adapt to this current economic climate? What do you think they should do?
Right, so in order to help at least keep up and not be too far behind, we have to find ways in which to grow our money, even if it's not investing. So investing is obviously very important, but even parking your money in high yield savings accounts, you get a bit more bump than a traditional savings account, will help combat that inflation that we are all running from.
And let's talk about more like outside the Fed. What are some struggles or circumstances that people are facing right now in the current economic climate we're in? What are some of the unique challenges?
So there's job insecurity. We're seeing all the layoffs and tech layoffs and the pending announcements. So it's making a lot of people, rightfully so, nervous. And then therefore they're not maybe proactively doing as many things with their finances because they just are not secure with their job. Then you have rising healthcare costs. And then the opportunities at which our generation or the kids that are graduating from college don't see as much opportunity anymore. And so there is a plethora of issues and concerns that rightfully so Americans have that they have to face and deal with as we're dealing with this economy.
And let's talk about some of those solutions, right? You mentioned the high yield savings accounts, about parking your money there. But I mean, what should consumers really be rushing to do that? Or what are some other options? What do you think they should be mindful of?
Right, so personal finance, we have to look at our budget, our inflow and outflow of money. And that's where it all begins. So really it's taking a look at what you're spending. And I know that task can feel overwhelming and daunting, and it is, but it's so helpful if you want to be able to have control of your money. So sitting down, going through your bank statements, your credit card statements, and just getting a pure, real picture of where your money is going is the first step in order to make those changes you want to see.
How often should you be doing this? Like once a week? Are we talking once a month? Are we talking quarterly, 3, 6 month, 9 month goals? Like what do you think would be feasible?
Right, so for someone who has never done this before, this one time looking at what you're spending, so a look back at the previous year, it's a great place to start since we're in January still. And then also a look forward. So where do you want to spend? Once you get a realistic, and keyword is realistic, budget together, and you see where you're spending and what you like to spend on, then you can move forward in creating budgets for the months ahead. Now, I recommend if you're just starting out to do it at least 3 times to 4 times a month. Again, I know it feels overwhelming, but the more you do it, the better it becomes versus waiting once a month or every 3 months, because the purpose of a budget is to allow you to be proactive. So how can you be proactive if you don't know what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
And so sitting down to go through your budget, to say, wait a second, I'm overspending in restaurants, what can I do to make up for that somewhere else, is going to be helpful.
Tell me about your journey. How did you become so passionate about finance?
Oh my God, it was really a personal journey as it starts for many people, but I had a long commute from Brooklyn to New Jersey, working in corporate America, began to have kids, and it was being pregnant with my first child in a commute that I disliked, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And so I started to seek out ideas and topics that would help me escape the corporate world, and it was personal finance. It was learning to save and invest and be smarter with my money. Started the podcast journey to launch, wrote the book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom, after doing all these amazing things with my money, because I want to see other people be successful and have freedom on their journey to financial independence.
I love that. Well, where can we find your book?
You can find my book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom, wherever books are sold. So that's Amazon, bookshop.org to support your local bookstores, Target, Walmart. I was flying in San Francisco the other day and I saw it in the San Francisco airport. So you can find it in the airports too.
So cool. Well, Jamila, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, financial technology, or fintech, has become a major part of our lives. Platforms like block ticker symbol SQ here at the New York Stock Exchange are making it easier for people to make transactions quickly. Last week, I spoke with Sergey Nuget. He is the CFO and co-founder of Fintech OS, who is on a mission to simplify financial technology for all. Let's take a look.
Fintech OS is this company that we have created back in 2017 in order to change the way financial software infrastructure is being built.
You've had extreme success recently. You've had 2 years, year-over-year growth. What is fueling this?
Well, I think, like any other company that is VC-backed, we're using the money for a purpose, and that is to facilitate more rapid access to our technology to everyone that can use it. And this means, on one hand, scaling the technology, which means a better product, easier to use, better adopted by business people and by technology people as well, and at the same time, geographic coverage. So expansion in new markets. For us, being here in New York, is a decision that we have made very seriously a few years back when we thought we would be shifting from a company that is London headquartered into a dual headquarter between London and New York. And this is something that we are here to build with the money that we are raising from investors.
And you were selected by Endeavor in 2022. Tell me how the company has really helped build your business.
Endeavor is a fabulous organization, and everybody knows I'm a big fan of. And the reason that I'm a big fan of is perhaps slightly different from what they take pride in, which is matching companies with investors, but more in the fact that it's probably the best peer group that I've ever been part of, because everybody there is an exceptional entrepreneur striving to prove something to the entire world, to create a company that lasts, to create a name of the company and the name for themselves that lasts. And this is actually something that not very many people have. And when you get all that in common and you have the open discussions with your peers about real things related to managing the company, managing relationship with investors, managing company culture and all that, this becomes very real and very powerful for all of us.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. We are less than 20 minutes from the start of today's session, and a new face will be ringing today's opening bell. Morgan Stanley's direct lending is joining the NYSE via a traditional IPO, with shares set to begin trading later today. Our team has been at it all night, putting up Morgan Stanley's direct lending branding all over this iconic building, from the cubes behind me above the trading floor to the video screens on the NYSE building on the corner of Wall and Broad Streets in Lower Manhattan. Now, Morgan Stanley's direct lending fund was actually founded in 2019, is a specialty finance company focused on lending to middle market companies and will trade under the ticker symbol MSDL. Jeff Levin, co-head of private credit, CEO, and president of Morgan Stanley Direct Lending Fund, will ring the opening bell and open up the U.S. equity markets. Furthermore, MSDL benefits from the Morgan Stanley platform in the form of sourcing, enhanced due diligence, and value creation for sponsors and borrowers. This creates proprietary deal flow, first last looks on deals, and preferred allocations. Now, lenders don't only play a pivotal role with companies, they also play a big role in the housing market. Potential home buyers have experienced a lot of turbulence when it comes to locking in a mortgage rate, but things could be getting better. According to Freddie Mac, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate slipped to 6.6% last week, reaching the lowest level since this past May. Remember, 30-year mortgage rates were nearly 8% last October. On the inside of the Ice House podcast, NYSE head of corporate affairs Josh King recently spoke with Andy Walden, the vice president of enterprise research strategy, about what potential home buyers need to know about the state of the housing market right now. Let's check it out.
What do people across the country face when they think about getting into home buying now?
Yeah, it's an incredible challenge out there in the market, to say the least. So I do not envy producer Lance's position. It's as challenging as it's been in a generation or more out there in the market. And you mentioned that it kind of culminated in October. Things have improved a little bit here over the last couple of months. Home affordability as we entered 2024 was at its best level since May. Now, that's not saying a whole lot, but we've seen some modest improvement over the last couple of months. And the expectation is that as we move throughout 2024 and interest rates settle a little bit and income is allowed to grow a little bit, that home affordability picture will look a little bit brighter as we move throughout this year, and it will gradually improve.
Make sure to listen, review, and subscribe to Inside the Ice House podcast on your favorite podcast platforms. Join Josh King every Monday for conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Scan the QR code here to listen to the most recent episodes. Now, in other news, they can't help what people with their finance. Fiserv, trading here on the New York Stock Exchange under ticker symbol FI, launched the Fiserv Small Business Index earlier this month. The index assesses all performance of small businesses in the U.S. at national, state, and industry levels. And our own Judy Shaw caught up with Fiserv President of Data Solutions, Prasan Dori. Let's take a listen.
today on NYSE Floor Talk is Prasanna Dore. He is the President of Data Commerce Solutions at Fiserv. Prasanna, it is wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited too.
Oh, so exciting news.
Yep.
You have launched the Fiserv Small Business Index.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
When you think of economic activity, what comes to our imagination? It's the tall skyscrapers and sprawling corporate campuses. But it's the small businesses, like the humble corner store in a community, or the family restaurant with 10 employees, or the independent bookstore, that really holds the pulse of the local economy. Almost 99% of the small business, or businesses are small business. They contribute about 45% of the GDP. And they employ 50% of the private workforce. But there isn't a good metric that really tracks the health of small business. And that's the reason we are introducing Fiserv Small Business Index.
So tell me, how will this index be different from the data that's currently available?
Many ways. I'll give you an example. The federal government releases what is called a monthly retail trade services survey, which is a survey of 14,000 businesses, and they estimate what this retail sales is, and they publish that about 6 weeks after month end. Our data is real time. We don't have to survey 14,000 businesses. We have 2 million businesses. So we can create a metric instantly to know what's happening with small business. We don't have to wait for 6 weeks to do that. This has huge implications for policymakers, for economists, so that we can really get that data and start planning, especially for federal government accommodative policies. This data will be very helpful.
And tell me, how does Fiserv know so much about small business?
And as you know, we serve about 2 million small businesses in every corner of this country, So we go in, if you look at that, there's something called NICS categories. Every NICS category, we serve the business. So we know exactly what's happening in restaurants, what's happening in accommodation, what's happening in every category to that particular last minute. So we have not only the granularity of data, but also the lack of latency of data. So we know exactly what's happening. Tomorrow I can tell you what happened yesterday. So that's the power of data that we have.
So you have this data.
Yeah.
Who benefits from this data?
Oh, everybody. When I say everybody, I'm not exaggerating it. It could be the policymakers. It could be companies, strategic planning. It could be, you name it, every businesses, small businesses. If they want to compare how they're doing with their peer groups, they can look at it. So the entire spectrum of users for this application.
All right, so finally, Prasanna, tell me, how are small businesses doing?
Oh, they did much better in the last quarter, in the holiday season, than the big box retailers. Much better. And one of the things that we looked at was they did really well in what is called experiential services, like travel, movies, restaurants, all this aspect of it. So the small businesses are really doing well.
A lot of important information there. Thanks to Judy for that interview. Now, while the Fed's rate hike campaign has made borrowing more difficult, it's been advantageous to savers. And there's no cheat code required. It's backed by the U.S. government, actually. And you've probably heard of a treasury yield. Before, people would be like, what is that? But according to Investopedia, it is the annual return investors can expect from holding a U.S. government security with a given maturity. So while the 10-year treasury yield is one of the most well-known economic benchmarks, Americans can obtain securities for different periods of time. Treasury bills, or T-bills, are short-term securities with maturities of up to 1 year, with interest rates paid at maturity. Treasury notes, or T-notes, are issued with maturities of 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10 years, with interest paid every 6 months. Finally, Treasury bonds, or T-bonds, are used fixed with maturities of 20 or 30 years with interest paid every 6 months. Now, currently the 10-year Treasury yield is sitting at slightly above 4.1%, and although this is an uptick since the holidays, the 10-year yield rose to a high at about 5% back in October. Now, people are also locked in by interest rates utilizing high-yield savings accounts or CD accounts with their banks. Now, the New York Stock Exchange has been diving deep into the financial space as people and companies, not just in the US, but all over the world, attempt to navigate recent economic volatility. I spoke with Corey Bahar, the co-founder and CEO of Turkish fintech platform Figapara, who explained how his company is looking to unlock financial opportunities for its customers. Take a listen.
There are over 3 million businesses in Turkey, and they are really struggling to getting credits from the banks. Turkish banking ecosystem actually is really big and really sophisticated and really digitalized, but for the SMEs it is really hard them to use the banking lines. So as Figapara, we are solving their future income receivable solutions through our sophisticated technology. Just recently, this year, we lent over $300 million cash to over 10,000 small, medium businesses.
And tell me exactly how you're bridging that gap.
Actually, we are using our technology. In Turkey, we are really lucky. Over 1 million businesses have to use electronic invoicing. So all their invoices have to pass through the Ministry of Finance platform. So we are using that data, and through our electronic invoicing scoring system, we are analyzing their businesses and working capital needs. And based on that algorithm, we are providing our bank partners. We are partnered with more than 20 banks. So through FigoScore, banks are trusting those small, medium businesses and accepted to lend money. Roughly $30,000 to $35,000 credit limits they are eligible to get. Have really short-term receivables, roughly 3 months, and our default rates are less than 0.6%. So that's what we are solving.
And how does Endeavor help with your mission?
I become the Endeavor entrepreneur from my previous company, Foriba, and in Figapara, second time I was selected as an Endeavor entrepreneur. So all our fundraising, while we are expanding our operations out of Turkey, Endeavor is always next to us. So from my previous company, we raised more than $10 million. In this business, we already raised $20 million, and almost, I think, the half of it is driven by the Endeavor network. So that's really valuable for us.
Now, before we go, let's dive into what will be a very busy upcoming week here at the New York Stock Exchange, and you'll get to see all of the action right here on NYSE TV Live. On Monday, FanDuel, parent company of Flutter, will be bringing plenty of excitement to the exchange when it rings the opening bell. The ceremony's CEO will tell us why now is the right time to enter U.S. equity markets. A future Pro Football Hall of Famer may just happen to be on hand for this celebration and join us right here on NYSE TV Live. Amir Sports' highly anticipated IPO is also slated to commence next week. The company boasts some of the world's most recognizable sports and outdoor brands, including Wilson tennis rackets and Salomon ski equipment. Amir Sports, or DMM, here at the New York Stock Exchange will also provide us with an inside look at the price discovery process. Alto Neuroscience also is set to ring the opening bell, rather. Alto is using AI in an effort to reinvent treatment for mental health conditions. The exchange's head of healthcare and life sciences will take us through some of Alto's most notable achievements and what it means for the broader industry. But NYSE TV Live doesn't only cover companies, we'll also be setting the scene for the next Fed policy decision exactly 1 week from today. So a lot of important things to look out for right there. Now, the opening bell is just a few moments away, but first, the New York Stock Exchange held the latest installment of its annual ETF Summit this past October, helping people become better investors. Let's check it out.
climate events are rising in frequency and severity. Increasingly, climate risk impacts investment risk. To help integrate these risks, the ICE Climate Transition Analytics tool generates analytics to identify, assess, and report climate factors in portfolios and loan books. Upload a portfolio to generate an array of climate analytics. Access carbon footprinting analysis, avoided emissions data, and Scope 3 emissions data. Conduct net zero analysis. Compare portfolio and benchmark pathways. Check portfolio's progress towards stated decarbonization targets. Conduct scenario alignment. Analyze portfolio implied temperature rise score and assess trajectory against chosen climate scenarios. Calculate temperature scores using the Science-Based Targets Initiative aligned approach. Access stranded assets data and analyze fossil fuel reserves footprint and country-level exposure. Generate and customize powerful reports, including TCFD-aligned reports that can help you meet your regulatory and stakeholder requirements. Access ICE's Climate Transition Analytics and more today.
All right, we're just about 3 minutes out from opening up the U.S. equity markets. Let's take a little look at what the market is doing right now. Markets are trending higher as we approach the opening bell after the Dow, which closed above 38,000 for the first time ever on Monday, fell below the number on Tuesday. Now, earnings season is beginning to sweep through Wall Street. IBM will report its quarterly figures today after the closing bell, while Visa headlines companies reporting earnings on Thursday. Now, the whole team from MS, I like to call them, they just made their way down to the trading floor as they get ready to open up the U.S. equity markets. There's dozens of the team members, colleagues that you're getting pictures of right there. Everybody is going to start cheering in just a few moments, so we'll actually hear them at the trading in our studio above the trading floor. But first, we're going to take a little look at another message from our parent company, so we'll be right back. All right, we are just about a minute out from watching the team from Morgan Stanley open up the U.S. equity markets and ring the opening bell. Now, the Morgan Stanley Direct Lending Fund and CEO and President Jeff Levin are ready to ring the opening bell. They're going to get situated on the bell podium, but be sure to tune into the exchange's coverage of the closing bell this afternoon when the Discover Boating New York Boat Show in partnership with Progressive Insurance will ring the bell at today's end of the session. So for all of us here at NYSE TV, I'm Trinity Chavez. Have a great day.
together, we built something truly beautiful in the true iconic notion of what America is all about.
This is our task, this is our mission. We have a clear focus and we have the ability to be agile and innovate.
It takes years of dedication to get us to this milestone. It is all because of you.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It is the only thing that ever has.
To be a woman leader, it's not so easy, but it's easy if the passion and the love is coming from your heart.
The New York Stock Exchange is the symbol of what America is all about. The potential of capitalism, the potential of an American dream.
The only way you can move a society forward is a true expression of freedom.